Happy Mother's Day!
Yes, happy Mother's Day. Once again, we're at Mother's Day in this time of year. Make sure that you are congratulating and thanking any mother in your life, whether it's a girlfriend, a wife, a mother,
Stepmother,
stepmother,
grandmother, aunt,
grandmother.
neighbor,
Yes,
teacher, anyone who played a mothering role
a
in your life.
mothering role. Yes, yes. Recently, we were at the hospital for medical emergency, and a lot of the nurses were talking about their mothers.
Well, the whole staff, not just nurses.
Yeah,
It was really interesting how they all were thinking about their mothers and fathers and their childhood and how they ended up being in such an important role in their life. They were acknowledging their parents' contribution for them getting education and helping to save people's lives.
yeah, really. And I think that they were all contributing it to their mother. I mean, being in the position that they're in, that it relates back to what their mother installed in them.
Mother and their fathers as well, their whole family. I was amazed because these people were not together when they each individually mentioned their parents. We were in different rooms at different points in the hospital when they all would bring up their upbringing and how they ended up being a
Right.
hospital worker.
Right. Yeah, I had a medical emergency. I'd gone to the hospital emergency room and had spent, a day and a half.
Well, yeah, almost, yeah, a day and a half or so. Yeah, it was extremely scary. It was a Friday night 2 weeks ago. We had just finished eating dinner, and Steve has been extremely stressed out lately, which is not good. After
Right.
he had lost his job last summer, and because I'm not 65, he wanted to get health insurance for me, and I did too. And the only really affordable way is through a job. And jobs are hard to come by when most companies are laying off today by the thousands.
Right.
So,
Right. So I took a low level job that would pay health insurance, and it was very stressful. And so when your stress starts building, plus I also had some dental work done and was on a steroid and an antibiotic, and I don't think all of it was putting me in a good place. And
well, a big part of the stress was that he worked overnight, and your body isn't naturally made to sleep during the day and work at night. So that was a big part. And our friend, a good friend of ours for over 30 years, had just told me Steve needs to leave that job because he's going to have a heart attack. That leads to heart attacks, switching your body. And then on his days off, he would flip it back to do things during the day, like doctor's appointments or run errands. And then he'd flip it back to work. And at his age, 67, extremely dangerous. That plus the
yeah,
stress of the job was so unwelcoming and not uninviting and just stressful.
right.
And I was extremely concerned about his stress. That night he normally would wake up and he never woke up, and I actually thought, oh my God, did he die in his sleep? I actually thought that before I went to wake him up because he had to have dinner and get ready for work. And I went into the bedroom very nervously and woke him up, but he was so sound asleep, it was hard to wake him up.
Yeah, I mean, it was getting to a point where it just wasn't working anymore. And when your health is at risk, it's not worth it. So you have to
Well,
make decisions.
the dental procedure was a little bit more involved than we thought. I think as you age, dental procedures are very serious. He had abscess removed, and I think it must have been very deep abscess. I did not get any information. I wish I go to most doctor's appointments with Steve for that reason, and this particular appointment I did not go to. Probably the first one I didn't go to, so I did not know the level of his infection. That was the appointment before removing it. When they removed it, I was there, and he came out and instantly. His face was swollen, and he looked to be in extreme pain. And they didn't give him any pain medications because we're both allergic to codeine.
Right.
And I was like, that's just ridiculous. You have no pain meds. I was like, you have no medications, and you're in extreme pain, and your whole face is swollen. I was concerned right then and there. That was roughly about 2 weeks before his incident, but we believe it contributed greatly to his incident.
Sure, and it was the abscess was from a root canal. The abscess grew at the end of the root canal, and so that had to be taken out. And they said it had nothing to do with the root canal itself. They said it just happens, and I usually don't have any problem with my teeth. My teeth are in good shape, and I never have really any issues. But anyway, so I think all of that, along with the lack of sleep, the schedule, I think all of that led up to a stressful event.
So we had just finished eating and we're talking, and he was really, really down, did not want to go to work. He was dreading working. I mean, he was still tired, still in pain. He had to lift heavy objects at work, and it's a physical job, and at his age again, and overnight, it was extremely challenging. So then he just started to not make sense. He was garbling his words and not saying words, and then he did say some words, but they weren't real words. They weren't garbled, but they were just made up words.
It's just they weren't coherent.
And he looked like confused, like, I know that's wrong, but I don't know the right word. And the word he was looking for was text. So it's not like a word that was challenging. It's an everyday word. If it were challenging or a word we don't use that often, I would have blown it off. But when he couldn't say text, which we do on a daily basis, I knew it was serious. And I knew it wasn't, he didn't have other symptoms. So I knew enough. I followed the stroke symptoms. I knew it wasn't so serious that I felt I needed to call 911, but I needed to get him to the hospital. I had been having my own health issues. I had a recent diagnosis of a neurological issue, and I had been doing some physical therapy online at home that was offered through Steve's work. And I did some exercises, and that brought on the vertigo, which I had all day. So I was feeling really, really rough myself. So I knew there was no way I could drive him to the hospital because of my condition. And so, but I didn't want to call 911 because I know ambulances could be $2,000. Sadly, we do have to think that. I mean, I know I was chastised later, but we're the ones who could become homeless if we spend all this money today. So I called my children first, thinking they would just come over and drive us. Well, they yelled at me to call 911. Well, I was thinking that's just going to waste time because I don't want to take an ambulance. But I did call 911. Do you remember that?
Right. So she calls 911, and you can hear them coming, and it was just got louder and louder, and then the next thing is that.
I did want to talk about the phone call because my favorite show growing up was 911, right? They had this reenactment, and the phone call, I have never called 911 in my life, and it was a little bit different. I have been training our grandson how to call 911 because everybody has a cell phone. There's no house phones. And I thought I would be the one with the medical emergency with my new neurological diagnosis. So I was training our grandson how to call 911. It was a little different than the show because the first thing she asked for my memories, I believe she asked for our address, and I actually had almost stroke symptoms myself. I was having difficulty in talking myself. So I gave her our address, and then I think she asked me to repeat it. And then she asked for the phone number, and I think she might have asked me to repeat the phone number. I always remember them saying medical, fire, ambulance, what do you need before they ask anything, but they didn't ask that. So then she asked what was wrong, and I told her I thought my husband was having a stroke. And she asked me to do 3 things. And by then Steve had gone to the restroom. He was in the bathroom. And so I had to get him out of the bathroom to do 3 things. One was to smile. So smile.
Really? I don't remember that I went to the bathroom.
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, when I was calling 911, you went to the bathroom. Okay, so smile. See, his smile should be all the way up. If one side is drooping, that's a big sign of an active stroke. The other was to lift both hands up above your head, and they should both be equally up. You're leaning with your body there, but they're both up. And the third was to say some sentence that I don't remember, like the brown fox, whatever. One of those sentences that we typed or whatever. And if he said the sentence accurately, so he passed that test. So then she knew it wasn't an active stroke, and it wasn't as much of an emergency. So then, like Steve said, we heard the sirens coming. They asked us to put the dogs away, turn the light on. And I told them I opened the garage because we were in the kitchen, and the garage led right to the kitchen. So they got there very, very quickly, I would say. I mean, she did hang up on me. That was another shock. Every show always said they never hang up till help gets there. And she hung up on me. And I was like, what? You're deserting me? I was upset. I didn't say anything, but I was upset. She's like, I'm hanging up. they're on their way. And I was like, well, that's not what all the shows tell you. They tell you they hang on until they get there.
No, that's not. Well, that's not true because I've called 911 quite a bit in my previous job, and they don't hang on there.
I always thought they did. So anyway, they got there in, I don't know what it was, 5-10 minutes, probably 10 minutes.
Less than that.
Less
It was
than 10?
fast.
I know we had a struggle with the dogs, getting Sammy in her cage, and Sierra we had to put in the yard because we don't have a cage for her anymore, and she was, well, they get kind of anxious around people.
Yeah.
So anyway, they came in, 8 guys. That shocked me because I'm thinking, what if somebody else has an emergency? They're all at our house.
It's Friday night.
I thought I was shocked. And then later somebody said, well, if you had to pick him up, it's hard for 2 or 3 guys to pick a guy up. I don't know. They don't know what they're getting because people don't accurately define what the
Right.
symptoms are.
Right.
He could have been having drooling and...
So you
yeah.
overcompensate.
I mean, once they saw him and they took his vitals, which I could have done, they put on the, what's it called? The pulse.
Oximeter.
We have one of those since COVID. We bought one. And they took his blood pressure, which we have numerous blood pressure cuffs, so I could have done that. And did they do anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, they asked a couple questions and looked at my eyes and,
I was changing my pants by that time because I had yoga pants on and I knew I was going to the hospital. I didn't want to be wearing yoga pants to the hospital. So I ran in to change my pants while they were doing that. Then they wheeled in a tablet on wheels. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, they wheeled in because they wanted to put him in the ambulance. And I was denying ambulance because I knew, I mean, they even were admitting he wasn't having active stroke symptoms.
Right, and I said I didn't want to go in an ambulance.
But they had to wheel in a guy who they had to record him saying he was refusing the
Right.
ambulance.
Right.
So you have to remember that.
Well, I just remember saying that. I don't remember.
Okay, so they wheeled him in on a tablet and asked if we were denying the ambulance. And I felt guilted, like they were guilting us into an ambulance when they knew his symptoms weren't that severe. And I'm not positive or not if you get pushed up in the triage at the hospital. If you come by ambulance...
Right, but you just have to remember that nothing is free in life. And if you're going to have a ride in an ambulance to the hospital, if you need it, take it.
Yeah, if you need it.
If you need it, take it. Don't second guess it. Don't worry about the money. Just do it. But if you don't and you go to an ambulance, that can end up being a couple $1,000s. So you definitely want to, if you can go by car, go by car. You may have to wait a little bit longer in the emergency room, but the point is that it comes down, of course, it comes down to money. And, your health, if you need it, take it. No dollar can replace your health, your life. But if you can go by car, go by car.
I mean, I knew Steve was back to normal within 2 minutes. It lasted less than 2 minutes. So I knew it wasn't extremely serious. And I had been told by our child who's married to a nurse that they wouldn't have pushed him up in the triage because they're going to do it according to severity. They're going to push people up who have heart attacks, gunshots,
Right.
and active strokes. So he wouldn't have been pushed up in the triage because I did feel guilty once we got there and we had to wait for hours. I felt really guilty because there is a window with strokes. If you don't get taken care of within that window, you're going to have permanent damage. And I felt really guilty. We didn't come by ambulance. But again, he didn't have active symptoms, so he would not have been pushed up.
Right. You kind of have to measure your symptoms or whoever your loved one's symptoms at that time and make that call. I mean, it's not easy, but you just have to go along with it.
I mean, people made me out to be the bad guy, that I did not want to do the ambulance. But no, I was aware enough to know he wasn't in active stroke.
Yeah, and I knew that. I knew that too.
And also Steve's sister-in-law, his brother's wife, just had a stroke in December. And his brother, and they're in their 80s, his brother drove her to the hospital with an active stroke. He said as soon as they walked in and he said the symptoms, they wheeled her back. She was in the hospital 5 days, and he said has no permanent damage. So that was in the back of my head. If she was having an active stroke and he drove her, then I thought, well, then surely Steve was 20 years younger or 15 years younger and
Right.
not having an active stroke, then we could drive him as well. And also, another concern was which hospital to go to. I had gone to one close to our house, and my maximum out of pocket was $7,500, but my total bill was about $8,000. I don't know how maximum out of pocket and total. that was just 2 years ago. We had an $88,000 bill. So I'm thinking this bill's going to be like 8 to 10,000. And that's a chunk of money. That's a chunk of money. If you're having this every 2 years or every year, or both of us, if both of us have an ambulance and an incident, that's 16,000.
Right. You're going to be taking out loans to
You're gonna have debt the rest of your life. They could take your house.
So, yeah.
Sadly, we have to think like this. And I think like this because I have an MBA and I worked as a financial analyst. I'm not a cheap person. I know math. I know numbers. I know bankruptcy. I follow cases of the number of people bankrupt, people who are homeless because of financial things. Most people in America are bankrupt because of financial,
right, and you have
because of medical.
You have to kind of weigh your own situation, and it's sad that we have to, but this is the world we live in.
And I didn't appreciate family members later guilting me that because our children live so close. I thought if they get over here and get to the hospital, that'll be the fastest thing. I didn't know they were going to say call 911 because I knew he wasn't having an active stroke. So. To me, that just delayed it. That just wasted time. If I had been able to drive myself, I probably would have put him in the car and driven him myself.
Right. So I would say that all in all, I spent a day and a half in the hospital. So I was never checked in. But
you were checked and not admitted.
I was checked in but not admitted. Even though I was in a room, I had a nice private room.
Well, you were in, first of all, the room where they...
It's called observation.
Well, first you were in, the first room? There's two different rooms. First, our child had just decided that they needed to make a binder. I have a healthcare binder, but they wanted to make a spreadsheet of our health concerns, because I had been going to the doctor. They wanted to do basically for me because they thought I was going to have some incident. So they made a spreadsheet of and I don't even take medications. I just have things that they can't help me with. But they wrote down my incidences in the past, and then they were writing down Steve's. And they just completed this the Sunday before this happened. So they had a binder of information because they knew that I would be extremely stressed out if we went to the emergency room. And that was true because I honestly, when the firemen and paramedics came, I honestly thought they checked my vitals, they'd be putting me on that stretcher and taking me. And my vitals were far, far worse than Steve's. I mean, vertigo is a sign of stroke. So that's something you can't ignore. But because I've been seeing neurologists and different doctors, I know that it's not from stroke, but it is a big sign of stroke. So if they took my pulse and my blood pressure, it would have been off the charts. They would have said, she's got to go now. She's got to go now. She's having a stroke.
So, you have to take all that in consideration, and just really, I dislike hospitals a great deal. I cannot stand hospitals. When I was a teenager, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. Before that, my dad, who died of cancer at a young age, spent a lot of time in the hospital. And I do not like hospitals at all. I can't stand going into them. I especially can't stand staying there. And so, it was very off-putting for me. And I couldn't wait to get out of there because they kept wanting to do, and they did do test after test after test, MRIs and echocardiograms.
Well, first let's talk about the process. So they only allowed one person to go back with Steve, and my children and I were arguing. They felt like I was in no shape to go back, which was insulting to me. I was definitely in enough shape. I actually packed my 3-wheel rollator, which is easy to maneuver. I knew that I get dizzy when I don't get sleep. I knew I wasn't going to be getting any sleep that night. So I brought my rollator as a safety device, that I would have that. And I definitely was very alert, totally with it. By the time we got to the hospital, we sat in that waiting room probably, two or three hours.
Yeah.
And so only one person could go back, and we argued over who it would be. And I was ruled out. It was our oldest child went back, and they went to I don't know what you call that room, not observation. That was where they checked him out to see what is wrong.
Yeah, examination room.
Examination. At that point, they did do a CT scan, which is apparently my nephew does CT scans in an ER, and he said that's the first thing they do on everybody. I had one when I went 2 years ago. That was the bulk of my $8,000 bill, was that CT scan. So they did a CT scan on him, and then we switched places. Our children went home. It was about 1:30, 2 in the morning. They went home, and I went back. And we just waited. They said they found nothing on the CT scan. They said, of course, there's no MRIs at this time of the night. They said, you'll have to wait for morning. And I didn't know. Actually, they'd had this discussion before I went back. They said you could stay overnight and not be admitted, which I did not know. Or you can come back in the morning. We start all over again. So it's a whole new visit.
Yeah.
So who knows with deductibles and stuff, how that works out. I mean, I wasn't in the conversation. At the same time, they thought he's going to have... I think somebody mentioned a hole in the heart. They thought he had a hole in the heart.
There was a doctor there who was a young doctor, and she was just assuming, that if you have a TIA and you don't have anything that shows up on a CT scan, maybe you have a hole in your heart. So she started spreading that, and that I said no, there's no way.
Well, she said she had like a 69-year-old guy who had a hole in his heart. You don't know till you have a stroke that you have a hole in your heart. So she was harping on this and wanted to send him home, and said he'd have to have. They wanted to do 2 MRIs and an echo, but they wanted to send him home, and I'm like, oh hell no, he's not.
And they're
going
talking
home.
about open heart surgery to repair the hole.
And they said they don't do it in that hospital. You have to get ambulance to another hospital, and I'm seeing dollar signs and dollar signs. And she was pretty adamant about that hole in the heart.
And I was like, "There's no hole." In the heart.
She was pretty convincing that because when we got to the final room, so the next room was not a patient room. That was an observation room, and it's still within the ER, but a good hike down the hallways and doorways, and you're locked in there. Everything's locked in. You had to go through security and wear a badge, and everybody's locked in. So it was a good walk down. No bathroom in that room. That was the observation. Wait, where are we now? Yeah, the observation room.
The bathrooms were across the
second
hall.
room. Yeah, he didn't have a bathroom. And I asked the nurse about repairing a hole in the heart, and she's like, she started to tell me, and then she's like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So the doctor was very unprofessional to put this in my head, convinced me he had a hole in the heart, and then he's going to have heart surgery.
See, this is why I don't like hospitals.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the hospital, middle of the night, you have somebody who is making calls, decisions on what they think is the problem.
Well, they're voicing their internal thoughts. They shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
they shouldn't
and
do that.
so that kind of just leads me to believe that this is a way of kind of adding up the bill, adding on to the bill. I mean, it's just ridiculous to assume that. I have no other qualifications for a hole in your heart. I would believe that you have other things where you're out of breath and you don't have adequate blood flow and whatever else. But the point is that you shouldn't spit that out, okay, unless you are absolutely sure about that.
Right. And so they said that, okay, so we went to sleep. It was now about 4:15. We slept 4:15 to 6:15. They had said that a doctor was going to come in at 7 and he's going to have the MRI at 8. Somebody put that out there, which was, I don't know why, that was unprofessional too. And then they were telling us he can't eat because of the MRI. And I had just had an MRI, and I said, well, you can eat with the MRI. What is that? Well, so then the next morning, nobody came at 7, nobody came at 8.
I couldn't even drink water.
And they still said he couldn't eat. And I was like, and then the nurse started saying he can eat. And I said, they put the fear of that he couldn't eat in my head. I was like, well, I want to make sure he can't eat because everybody told me he couldn't eat. So I thought it's going to affect the MRI, which I had, and there was whatever. I was like, you're exhausted. You're not thinking clearly. You're stressed out. And everybody's telling you their own opinion. Their own opinion. And everybody has a different
And these are
opinions.
medical professionals.
Really, they should not say anything. Just say, we're going to test until you know. Well, then they said that there was 31 people waiting for the MRI, and there was so many people waiting for the echo. And they said, so we're going to let you do the echo on your own time after we dismiss him. I said, oh, no. Now they've told me he has a hole in the heart. And I said, with all the doctor's appointments we have coming up from me and from other things, that no, we need to get the echo done here because I'm thinking there's a max amount of pocket and he's already exceeded that. That's what I'm thinking. That he's already exceeded, so let's get the echo done here. I mean, especially if there's a hole in the heart and he's going to have a heart attack. I mean, at home, I was like, no, let's get that done here. And so we had to wait for the MRI, which he was having 2, one with contrast and one without contrast. So the echo was done pretty quickly.
And so you don't know. The contrast is where they shoot a dye into your veins. And
where did they shoot it?
In your veins,
in your
my vein, yeah. So I had a port put in my arm when I first checked in, which hurt really bad. And I still have the red mark. And so they put dye in there, and they watch the dye flow through your brain and everywhere else. And they do the same thing with the echo, which is a monitor of your heart, and they put a contrast in there too. And then they watch it flow through your valves and your different chambers, and if there's a problem. So anyway, I had to get a tranquilizer for the MRI because you're in this little space and it's so loud. It sounds like construction all around your head. I'm serious. Sounds like hammering, sounds like drilling, sounds like cement, all of this stuff. And it's just crazy. And so all in all, the result was nothing found. My heart, perfect shape.
Yeah, heart was
outstanding.
Heart was
perfect shape.
Outstanding size,
brain,
muscle.
perfect shape.
I don't know if I go that far. I don't know, but they did find some aging issues in your brain.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I am 67.
Which when I called 911, I did say 68. And as I said it, I was like, that's not right. That's not right. But you know what? You're so stressed out. That's why when I go back to the whole thing that I think the whole incident with Steve was so stressed out. I'm thinking, why can't we say it was tremendous stress with the dental surgery and the stress of the job? That why does it have to be? They said TIA just because they found no clot anywhere in his body.
Well, no, if they call it stress, what are we going to charge you for? Where are we going to put the dollar? What kind of medication do we put you on? So I mean, the whole thing was that they found nothing. They call it a TIA. And Sue will put on the screen what that stands for. But basically it means we don't know why you lost your words.
Well, they called it a warning sign that he's going to probably have a stroke. That's his warning that you are going to have a stroke. And
yeah, so I retired.
It's your warning that if you don't change your life, you're going to have a stroke. So they put him on blood thinner, statins.
Right, so after that, of course, they have to put you on something. So they put me on a blood thinner for 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And they put me on a statin, which I had been off a statin for a long time. And then they want me to take an aspirin, a baby aspirin, every day.
Which I thought they had gotten rid of that. I read, because there's been a lot of cases of internal bleeding. And I watched a lot of videos. They said they had not recommended that daily aspirin because of all the internal.
Right.
Because we've known people who've died from aspirin overdoses. Your grandmother.
My
grandmother,
yeah.
for one. And then another person, my cousin's father-in-law, actually ended his life by taking aspirin, which I didn't even know that was possible till she told me. Painful way to go. But so I guess that's still protocol to do the baby aspirin, or no, it's low dose. No longer baby, it's called low dose.
Low dose
aspirin.
Low dose.
And see, they keep changing the words so you know how old people are. The old people call it baby aspirin, the young people call it low dose.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, all in all, everybody was so nice, so friendly, so nice.
But there was one more thing. After they convinced me he had a hole in the heart and find out he didn't, then they convinced me it was some kind of migraine, but I can't remember what type. Remember, she had me convinced it was a migraine before they said TIA, and I can't remember the name. There's so many different migraines, which I'm just learning that now. How many migraines there are? I'm learning we have ocular, then there's regular migraine, then there's vestibular migraines. But there was do you remember the name?
No, I don't.
I mean, by then
I blocked all that.
By then I had 2 hours of sleep when they're telling you. And I have
yeah.
I like to write everything down on paper. Because who can remember when you have 5 different doctors? I mean, they had the neurologist in the room, and they wheeled in a ER doctor on the tablet.
So when the neurologist was in there to go over the MRI, they wheel in a cart with a camera.
No, there wasn't an MRI. It was a CT.
Oh,
because
CT.
nobody ever went over the MRI, which I was upset about.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That's right. So the CT scan. So they wheel a cart in there that has a screen on it, and there's a doctor. There's a doctor
in Jamaica,
on it. Who knows where he was? And the neurologist is standing there, and she looks at the camera and goes, "I'm the neurologist. I'm here right now. We can consult later." And he just went on talking And then they wheeled him out.
Well, but I didn't like that at all. He asked the same questions the last 5 people had asked. Why are you here? Why are we going through this again? They're running all the tests. Why are you asking why he's here?
See, this is why I say it comes down to money.
Definitely,
It all comes down to
that
money.
doctor was pure money because he added no value.
Everybody has to make
He
their
added
dollar.
no value because he asked the same questions we've been saying for the last 36 hours. He asked the exact same questions, and they were already doing the testing. Why are you asking why you're here? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so it was definitely an experience and so that's why I retired, because I don't want to go through this experience again.
Well, I mean, you may. I mean, these
I don't
things-
think I will.
Well, he had to die of something. It could be stroke, heart attack, car accident. I mean, you have to die of something. But stress, I think the whole country's been under tremendous stress for the last year plus.
Yeah, stress does crazy things. I have been under stress for my whole career in one way or another, and sometimes stress has affected me really bad, like this case. Sometimes stress is just there where you can't sleep, or you feel nauseous, or different parts of your body hurts. You have to remember, stress always attacks the weakest part of your body.
Well, I wonder if a lot of my health issues aren't related to the stress, because everybody said, oh, poor Steve, but nobody said that job affected me greatly. All those videos I made that I said Steve's asleep, it's because we didn't want to say he was working at night. He's sleeping during the day, but I had to be quiet. It means I couldn't vacuum, couldn't clean the house, empty the dishwasher, couldn't make any noise. So when the paramedics came, the house was a little bit dirty. I was kind of embarrassed. I was a little embarrassed, but I had to have vertigo, and it's very hard to vacuum or bend and empty the dishwasher or do anything. It wasn't filthy. It was pretty, as our children said, it was lived in. It was lived in. It wasn't disgusting, filthy. Steve told me later he was embarrassed of our house, that it was dirty, and I was like, well, you know, what do you want me to say? I had vertigo, and they ignored me for the most part because they saw me with my rollator, and they pretty much talked to our children like I didn't exist anymore because I had a rollator. You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, they did. They looked at that rollator and
Where
looked
was
at.
I?
Obviously, that struck it more than you realized. Since you don't remember that. Yes, they looked down on me like, because I had a rollator, like I didn't even count anymore. That our children were the only ones who had a brain. Like, you can't have difficulty walking or be in a wheelchair and still have a brain. A lot of people, as they age, either keep their brain or their body. I mean, I have my brain, my body's going. So anyway,
I have my body and not my brain.
see, so we make a person together.
Yes, we make one
I
person.
tell him what to do.
We make
I got
one
the brain,
person.
he has the
Yep.
body.
Yep, we're one person.
We're not that far gone. Everybody says when they, all my medical professionals say they're amazed how well I do have balancing. It's like just enough to drive me crazy. It's not real bad, just enough to where it puts the fear of fall in you. And I'm overprotected because I don't want to pay 10 grand to go to the ER if I fall. You know, my sister had just fallen, and she had surgery and everything. Falls are serious. So I'm trying to prevent a fall. I'm trying to prevent it with the canes and rollators, right?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
I could have gone to the hospital without the rollator, but I was like, I know I'm not sleeping. And I did sleep 2 hours. Steve slept a little more. He slept another.
Well, I'm the one who had the bed. So.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to show those pictures. I had a nice couch. They even made it. I started making it up, and she said, no, we'll do that for you. I was like, yeah, this is our 2026 vacation. I guess you should make up our bed since this is now our vacation for the year.
That was kind of fun. I mean, it was all the food you could eat.
Yeah, they said help myself to the food, which was basically like baby food in their fridge. It was like applesauce and soft fruit cups. Most unhealthy food you could ever find.
Yeah, amazing that in a hospital it was just the most unhealthy food.
I mean, the crackers, processed graham crackers and peanut
Chips
butter.
and-
They didn't have chips there.
I thought they had
Not
chips.
chips. No, it was graham crackers and saltine crackers.
You know, they had Coke and
Coke,
soft drinks.
They were the small cans, but you could take two.
Yeah.
And coffee. And they had turkey sandwiches, which I've read I should never, with my, I don't know, one of my conditions, my neurological conditions, that don't eat any lunch meat at all. That's the most unhealthy. So I did eat the turkey sandwich, and bread. Any processed food is terrible for me. So everything they had was processed. But I was starving, and my nephew was so wonderful. I have 14 nieces and nephews, and then our two, so 16 grandkids. I texted the whole group and told them how we're at the hospital, and he offered to send to give us DoorDash. Well, we're locked in. You literally had to go through security, and with my mobility issues, I was like, I can't get a mile away to get DoorDash and then bring it back. And so I was like, thanks, but no, you don't have to. I'm eating all these food here, which his wife is a nurse, and she knows that's crap. He said, no, I insist. So he just sent us DoorDash. Well, again, we just couldn't get it, but we so appreciate it because when we got home, we used the DoorDash. We did use it that night, so we greatly appreciated that for dinner because it was several days before we really got back because they gave us 3 doctors he needs to go to, and they said within 30 days, but they did give him medications of 90 days of medications. So he has to set up all these appointments. I'm not really sure what the neurologist is going to do since he didn't have any clots. And then a cardiologist.
Yeah, so as we move forward with this, there'll be limited appointments set up because I'm not going to just go to doctors.
Well, now he's getting on Medicare, and I think doctor's appointments are free, whereas right now they're like 100, 110, 115. Right. He was under the insurance for me. So we were under the impression that he had to be under the work insurance for me to get the insurance, that I could not just get it myself and him be under Medicare. That's the impression we were given, and a lot of HR is on AI now that you can't even talk to anyone. I don't know. That's the impression we had always had, that he had to have that insurance. Some of his doctors had chastised him for not being under Medicare because he needs a knee replacement, and the doctor didn't want to do it until he gets on Medicare. So anyway, if he does need to go to the doctor, I think it's much more affordable under Medicare than it was under this particular insurance.
Right, exactly. So anyway, we're moving on. We've had the experience, and I definitely have turned the corner. I'm just now, my body is getting back from being hospitalized.
Well, from sleeping nights. Sleeping days. Sleeping days.
Yeah, and so now that I'm retired, it's about having fun and going places, getting on a regular schedule, going to sleep when normal people go to sleep, and waking up in the morning when normal people wake up. And we have our regular workout routine, which we're trying to stick to.
Our workout right now is walking, which sometimes I can't walk. I never know what any day is, but I've had really good days where I've been able to walk, and it's like I've had nothing, and then some days I can't even walk with a rollator. So I'm keeping a diary on what effects I'm finding. Any medication, pills, even supplements actually make me dizzy. So keeping a diary of what things make me dizzy to see what causes it. Oh, we went to an ear doctor, and that's a whole nother story. But so we've been to many, many doctors for both of us. And we feel like overall we're pretty healthy. We're pretty healthy. If I didn't have this balancing thing, I really don't have anything else going on. But balance is important.
It is. And so anyway, we're wishing everyone a happy Mother's Day, and definitely give your mother some love. Any woman in your life, give them some love. And if you have comments, don't forget, subscribe, comment below, and we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, I'm getting a special gift from our children.
Ooh.
Something I asked for, and I'm excited. Something to give back to the community. So that'll be exciting to show you what I got. And we are setting our goals. What's important in life? That's what, with him, Steve he was tired all the time. And I know our daughter-in-law worked nights as a nurse. She was the same way. You're just always tired and you don't think clearly. So I think that contributed so much to this incident, the working nights, the dental work, that most people would probably blow this off and not even go to the hospital, which some of them kind of did ask me. They questioned me why I brought him in. And I said, should I not have brought him in? They're like, oh, yeah, you should have brought him in. But I think most people would not have even gone in. I mean, not when you know it's going to end up being $10,000 or whatever it is, right? So, yeah, of course, I'm glad we brought him in. I'm glad because this is our wake-up call, and this is where we're changing our lives.
Yep.
Making our, cleaning out clutter in the house and making goals and trying to get back to our healthy diet where we had lost a ton of weight. I had lost, and in the last 2 years, I've been slowly getting it back. Although I'm still walking, I've been gaining it back, and so we're seeing what's important. And we're going to try to travel. With gas the way it is and prices, that's challenging too. But day trips are fun. living in Atlanta, we could go to whatever museums or things for the day. So we're going to the library, checking out their free passes and getting books and all that. And yeah, we're just trying to remain joyful as we are.
That's right, aging. Right. So remember, hang in there. We're aging joyfully.
We hope you are too.
Yes. And
It is tough. It is tough. It's more challenging every day.
it sure is.
Until we see you again.
Take it easy.